Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to episode number 149 of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. I am your host, James Murphy, aka Murph. And yes, I said good morning because currently it is 9 in the morning as I'm recording this on Friday, July 1st. We are already midway through 2022, and I feel like we say this all the time. Wow, I can't believe it's already July. And then here comes October. Wow, it's already Halloween. And then, oh my God, it's Thanksgiving and the holidays. Years kind of fly by before we know it, but I feel like days and weeks are long, but months are short, right? Usually the phrase is like, oh, my day is long, but the week is short. I never understood that expression until I started Murph's Cardtown and Sports Shop, and I completely understand that expression now because, most days I'm here 8 hours a day, whether I'm recording the podcast or recording a YouTube video, and then obviously operating the shop for 8 hours a day. I'm at the shop for a good 9 hours-ish, give or take. And, I'm at the shop between 55 and 60 hours a week. And, that's a long week for, just generally speaking, and most people. But, come Monday night, when it's time to clock out for Monday night and Tuesday, I guess, because the shop's closed on Tuesdays, it's like, wow, we're already here. Whatever. I don't know where I'm going with this. But, yeah, I usually don't say good morning. I usually say what's going on, everybody. But the shop is open, so I guess a little bit of a house cleaning real quick. The shop is open today, July 1st, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So I need to get this episode recorded before 10 a.m. so I can get it out to the public before then, just because the shop is going to open at 10 in the morning, and I'm not going to be able to record at 10:30, 11 in the morning like I usually do for Murph's Boston Sports Talk episodes, where on Friday I traditionally open at noon. So kind of have to accelerate the process here, not necessarily go quick with everything, but just kind of bump the timeline up like 2 hours or so. So that's what we're doing here. Housekeeping, yes, the shop is open 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. today, which I already mentioned. Kim's friend has a wedding that we need to attend today, and that wedding starts at 4. Very odd time. So I do apologize. Obviously, it's a one-man show here with the help of Kim and my mother, who some of you have met, both of them, or at least one of them, and neither of them are able to work at the shop today. So, yeah, so the shop has to close early, unfortunately, but we had a fantastic trade night the night before, and I love trade night, and I'm just saying, I talk about it periodically here on the podcast, Murph's Boston Sports Talk, how much I love connecting with the hobby, and I kind of use this podcast as a way for me to connect with sports enthusiasts, not necessarily card enthusiasts, or just sports enthusiasts, Boston sports maybe more specifically, because it's just, my outlet with this podcast is just about anywhere. Obviously at the shop, that is true as well, but people have to come to me, whereas each episode can go to you. So it's just another way for me to kind of connect with people in a different facet here with the podcast. But with trade night, absolutely love it. And obviously, if you are a goer to Murph's Cardtown Sports Shop and a listener to Murph's Boston Sports Talk, then you'll 100% know what I'm saying. But trade night was fantastic last night. It was a blast to be able to buy, sell, and trade with other people, in the community, and to see other people in the community buy, sell, and trade with each other, whether they're familiar folks or whether they're just meeting each other for the first time. One of the glories of trade night is to be able to interconnect yourself with the community one way or the other, and I do strongly believe that trade night absolutely does that, and it is by far the most exciting time of the month. If you're a sports card collector in the New England area, people from all over New England come on down to the shop for trade night because that's how awesome it is. And these aren't my words, these are other people's words telling me where they're coming from. Massachusetts, Connecticut, obviously Rhode Island, I guess Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont are a little bit further, but I've had people from those 3 states come to the shop in general. So it was a blast. I can't wait to upload the pickup video. I can't wait to upload the trade night vlog, so definitely stay tuned for that, guys. And if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, Murph's Cardtown Sports Shop, definitely go do that. Obviously, if you're listening to Murph's Boston Sports Talk on YouTube, I'd like to think you're already subscribed, but if you're listening to this episode or this podcast on audio-only platforms, then you're definitely you're definitely going to want to go subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, because there's a ton of great content, sports, hobby, shop-related content, all across my YouTube channel. So I definitely do believe you're going to enjoy that as well if you haven't checked it out already. So I was at Market Basket this morning, right? Real quick story before we get into our headlines. And just to kind of give you a little tease, we're going to be talking about the Bruins and their expected hiring of Jim Montgomery. We're going to be talking about the NBA free agency and that flurry that we had yesterday. Obviously, some news, the Celtics could be getting a superstar, quote-unquote a superstar, depending on if people think he's washed up or not. And then we're going to just chat about the Red Sox a little bit. It's going to be a nice, easy, breezy day. We're going to try to cover, the Bruins, Celtics, and the Red Sox, of course. Nothing crazy for the Patriots just yet in terms of news coming out of Foxborough. But I was at Market Basket today, and I was going to pick up a breakfast sandwich, obviously for breakfast. And I look at the cafe thing, and they have a iced chai latte. And I love iced chai lattes. I really do. Ask him. I love them, love them, love them. But I'm not like a basic where it's like, oh, can I get this, da-da-da-da-da, and it's like a dessert. Kind of like at Mary Lou's or some people with Dunkin' coffees. Just give me a nice iced chai, vanilla latte, whatever, almond milk or whatever. And I asked him, I was like, can I get an iced chai latte, please? And like, oh, we don't have any. I'm like, no, I haven't had one of yours yet, and I really want to try it, and I was just all earth-shattered. So I just got a regular iced tea. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I just need a little bit of caffeine to kind of help me through this morning, because I didn't leave the shop last night until like 10:30. I was here at the shop at 9, and obviously when you have two dogs, you don't sleep particularly well. But I'm not here to complain about that. Let's get into sports, because I've been talking for 7 minutes, and I'm sure you guys either care or don't care about anything I've said so far. But let's dive into the Boston Bruins expecting to hire Jim Montgomery as their new head coach. So we have a fresh article from ESPN that released last night at 8:48 p.m. Eastern Time by Kristen Shilton and Greg Wyshynski. That's a tough one. Wyshynski, that's a very tough one to say. Titled, Boston Bruins expected to bring on Jim Montgomery as new head coach, sources say. And I haven't read this article yet, so let's just dive into it together. It's not a very long one. It's very short, actually. But I do believe this is a topic that we should be discussing, since it immediately, directly impacts the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins are set to name Jim Montgomery as their new head coach, sources told ESPN on Thursday, confirming multiple reports. The appointment is expected to be made official Friday, the same day Montgomery's contract as an assistant coach with the St. Louis Blues expires. The 53-year-old Montgomery replaces Bruce Cassidy, who was fired by the Bruins on June 7th after 6 seasons behind the bench. Cassidy has since been named head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights. And I think I drew the math out that Cassidy was jobless for 6 days. I mean, he's a good coach. He has been consistent with the Bruins, getting them to the playoffs in, I believe, all 6 years. Made it to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2019, lost to the Blues. But I think this past year for Cassidy was, I think, a really good one. The Bruins started off hot. They sizzled out. They were out a bit. That they battled back. He made some adjustments on the first line, moving Pastrnak down, Jake DeBrusk up. He obviously, alternated the goalies very frequently. Even in the playoffs, he took out Ullmark and put in Swayman. So I think Cassidy did everything he could as the Bruins head coach, specifically this past year. Was his firing warranted? Well, if you're treading water for 6 years, making it to the playoffs, but making no real noise outside of 2019, then you could probably say that you're just treading water and you need a new voice in there. And hey, this is for the decision makers to make for the Bruins, not me. But if Cassidy goes, then why hasn't Sweeney gone? And obviously Sweeney's his buddies with Cam Neely, but it's still a question to be asked, right? But anyways, Cassidy is now with the Vegas Golden Knights after being jobless for 6 days. The Boston gig will be Montgomery's second NHL head coaching job. He was hired by Dallas in May 2018 and immediately took the Stars back to the playoffs for the first time in 3 years. But Montgomery's tenure in Dallas didn't last long. On December 10th, 2019, he was fired by the Stars for, quote, unprofessional conduct inconsistent with the core values and beliefs of the Dallas Stars and National Hockey League, end quote. General Manager Jim Nill said there was a, quote, material act of unprofessionalism, end quote, that led to Montgomery's firing without elaborating further. Very interesting, right? Obviously, this is something that you do need to take into account when you're either considering this guy or looking into this guy or even interviewing this guy and bringing it up. And obviously, I'm going to assume that the Bruins did their due diligence when going through the interview process with the other head coaching candidates and Jim Montgomery as well. And I'm assuming that this was brought up, and Montgomery probably told them his side of what happened. Could he have said something to upset the general manager? Or did he say something to upset the owner? Was he, just coaching the guys the wrong way? I mean, I don't know what it was, but they made it to the playoffs the year before. Yeah, what was it? First time in 3 years, correct? Prior to that? Yeah, first time in 3 years. So, I mean, is Jim Montgomery a good head coach? He's got a small sample size, but he was able to take the Dallas Stars to the playoffs in 2018. So, I don't know. I really do want to know what that material act of unprofessionalism was. Like, did he dress the wrong way? Was he saying the wrong things? Was he just, his philosophy and coaching just not, lining up with the teams? Very interesting. I'm sure it's going to get brought up in a press conference when the Bruins officially make Jim Montgomery their head coach and they have that introductory press conference. All right. On January 3rd, 2020, Montgomery announced that he was checking into rehab for alcohol abuse. In September 2020, the Blues hired Montgomery to serve as an assistant under head coach Greg Berube. Montgomery was primarily involved in special teams, helping St. Louis to rank second overall, 25.5% on the power play, and 10th at 81.3% on the penalty kill the past 2 seasons. Now, obviously, we could circle back to Montgomery's alcohol abuse as his material act of unprofessionalism. But again, could that just be kind of if he's checking it, I don't know the story in its full entirety, so please don't quote me on this. But if he's checking himself in because maybe he has a personal issue, good for him, different story. If he was getting fired for this and, fired for the alcoholism and then it circles back that he checked into rehab because he lost his job for it, then that definitely owns the right to have some questions. I mean, he got fired on December 10th, and he checks in on January 3rd. Obviously, I would like to think he's sober, but obviously that this is going to be something that we do have to keep in mind moving forward. Yes, alcohol can cause you to be disorientated, say some things that you're not supposed to say. It can get you in the wrong frame of mind, the wrong mentality. So these are things that are going to have to be considered when officially making him the head coach and how the team is coached moving forward. Because, say the Bruins go on a losing streak or whatever, all it takes is one sip for someone to relapse. And, it's a sad truth, but it is kind of the way that, a situation like this works. All it takes is one sip for someone to relapse on alcohol. And if he did get fired for alcohol abuse, and he did go into rehab, and I'd like to think he's now sober. Obviously, it's not like I'm trying to find the right words here. It's not like someone. I'm just trying to think of the right words here. Like I do believe Montgomery. Obviously, the statistics with the St. Louis Blues on the power play and the PK is going to serve the Bruins very well. Bruins have had a fantastic penalty kill for 10 years now. Their power play really suffered big time. I know 5-on-5 was a big issue for them going into last year. They kind of fixed it, kind of sizzled out a little bit. But overall, is Montgomery the right coach with all things considered? Do you need a special teams orientated coach? Do you need a more offensive-minded coach? Do you need a defensive-minded coach? Quite frankly, I would probably think that the Bruins need an offensive-minded coach just because you do need to score a lot of goals. The Bruins, outside of Bergeron, Pastrnak, and Marchand, do tend to struggle with scoring goals from their secondary scoring, We were able to see that towards the end of the regular season last year, that their secondary scoring was starting to take a step up a little bit. However, overall, the past, like I said, I don't want to say 10 years, but at least like the past 5 years or so, it has been a struggle. It was a struggle to find Krejci as right wing that could shoot the puck. During the 2019 Stanley Cup run, you couldn't get anything out of your top line, and it ultimately served you to lose the Stanley Cup Finals because you couldn't get goals scored by anyone else besides that top line, and that top line struggled on top of it. So there's a lot of question marks behind Jim Montgomery, and I'm not going to say he's not going to be a great head coach. He had some small success with Dallas. He obviously has some success being a special teams coordinator with the St. Louis Blues. But these are going to be question marks that are going to loom the Bruins if anything was to go awry. But let me continue with the article. Montgomery was a player himself, appearing in 122 NHL games from 1993 to 2003 between the Blues, the Montreal Canadiens, the Philadelphia Flyers, San Jose Sharks, and the Dallas Stars. He recorded 9 goals and 34 points, so not the greatest player. After hanging up his skates, Montgomery made several successful coaching stops prior to rejoining the NHL ranks. He was head coach of the United States Hockey League's I don't know how to say that. Dubuque Fighting Saints from 2010 to 2013, guiding the club to the league championship in 2010-11 and 2012-13. In 2013, Montgomery was named head coach at the University of Denver and led the Pioneers to a national championship in 2017. Montgomery was also voted the National Coach of the Year for the 2016-17 season. Boston is coming off its 6th consecutive playoff appearance, which ended in a first-round loss to the Carolina Hurricanes. Montgomery will be the 29th head coach in the original Sixers franchise history. So that is the latest out of the Bruins camp with, their head coaching hiring of Jim Montgomery. Definitely interesting hire. I mean, he does have a good resume, but again, is this the right fit for the Bruins with all things considered? Definitely let me know. Reach out to me via social media at Murph's Cardtown on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or leave a comment down below in the comment section if you're listening to this on YouTube. But let's jump over to NBA free agency, as we had a plethora of moves already made. Nothing crazy high-end just yet, but there has been some minor shockwaves that has kind of rippled around the NBA. I don't want to get too much into it, but I do kind of want to just breeze through all of the moves that have been made. I just want to make sure that they're all here. I believe they're all here. Let's see. I'm just trying to look for it. All right. Jalen Brunson plans to sign a 4-year deal with the Knicks, 4 years for $110 million. Malik Monk to sign a 2-year, $19 million deal with the Sacramento Kings. PJ Tucker is heading to the Philadelphia 76ers, a fully guaranteed deal for 3 years, $32.2 million. Victor Oladipo returns to the Heat on a 1-year, $11 million deal, which I thought he could have done better, but okay. Nicholas Batum is going to stick with the Sixers, 2 years, $22 million. Mo Bamba returning to the Magic, 2 years, $21 million. Isaiah Hartenstein going to the Knicks for 2 years, $16 million. Anthony Simmons to sign a 4-year, $100 million extension with the Trailblazers. Bobby Portis returning to the Milwaukee Bucks, 4 years, $49 million. Which, again, I think he could have done better. Possible hometown discount. I think the Celtics could have absolutely used a guy like Bobby Portis, a guy off the bench who can give you a little bit of offense, give you some defense, but most importantly, rebounding, offensive rebounding. And when Rob Williams is on the court for the Celtics, you get a ton of great offensive second chance opportunities. But when he's off the court, I think there's a big gap between him and, say, Tice or Horford in terms of the offensive glass. And I think bringing in Bobby Portis, who can hammer the offensive glass, which we saw firsthand in the Milwaukee Bucks series, but also give you a little bit of shooting, give you a little bit of defense, and just someone that's an overall good player. But 4 years, $49 million for him, I think that's a great deal going back to the Bucks. Joe Ingles joining the Bucks. Is there information on the contract? A 1-year deal, but there's no price Is it Joe Ingles? I don't know if it's Joe Ingles or not. Let's see. It just says Ingles. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it is Joe Ingles. Okay. Let's see. Luguentz Dort Thunder agree to a new deal for 5 years, $87.5 million. Marvin Bagley re-signing with the Detroit Pistons, 3 years, $37 million. Patty Mills staying with Brooklyn. He opted out of a $6.2 million option to become an unrestricted free agent. And him and the Nets agreed to a 2-year, $14.5 million extension. Don't worry, guys. We only got a few more left. JaVale McGee is going to join the Dallas Mavericks. 3 years, $20.1 million. Again, another guy I think the Celtics could have used. Rebounder, defender, rim protector, someone that can come off the bench and provide a little bit of extra defense. Again, protecting the rim if Rob Williams is not playing or if he's just, on the bench. I think having a guy like another Rob Williams 2.0 who was kind of like Rob Williams before Rob Williams, JaVale McGee in his heyday, to be able to just go up and just swat the ball, go up and catch, lobs and throw him down. I do believe the Celtics could have really used him. 3 years, $20.1 million. I don't know if I think for the Celtics, it would have been a good deal to kind of offer something similar. But he's more than likely going to be a starter in Dallas, where he wouldn't be a starter here in Boston. Jalen Brunson, we already mentioned. Let's see. Andre Drummond finalizing a deal with the Chicago Bulls. There's no details on that deal just yet. Gary Payton II is possibly going to the Portland Trail Blazers for potential 1-year, $8 million contract. So good for him, just bouncing around the league, being in and out, getting cut and all that, and then becoming a champion and being a part of that champion winning team with the Golden State Warriors. And a big part of that team. He wasn't just like a sludge. He actually played great defense, was able to grab boards and such. I mean, Celtics fans, we saw it firsthand what Gary Payton was able to bring to the table when he was on the court for the Golden State Warriors. And then the big one that is going to segue us into our next topic is Kevin Durant has requested a trade, and the Brooklyn Nets general manager Sean Marks is working to find a deal for the superstar. And that brings us to our next headline, or our next topic here. Should the Celtics pursue Kevin Durant? Now, it's already been stated that Phoenix and Miami are among the two teams that are on Kevin Durant's wish list. Now, let's think back to when Kyrie Irving, when Kyrie Irving first requested a trade from the Cleveland Cavaliers all those years ago, basically seems like so long ago, excuse me, that, first of all, he wasn't a headache at the time, and, Celtics fans really wanted him, and we all have to admit, we really did want Kyrie Irving, or at least the general Celtics fan base wanted Kyrie Irving because he was a superstar, he was an amazing player to watch, wasn't a headache, he was a champion, made that clutch shot against the Warriors in that finals game. Celtics fans really wanted Kyrie Irving at that time. And Kyrie Irving's wish list, I think, was maybe at the time like the Heat, the Lakers, the Knicks maybe. But the Celtics weren't on it. And then the Celtics slide in there and they trade for Kyrie Irving, and that was a great deal at the time. I don't think they had to give up Isaiah Thomas, but nonetheless. Celtics got Kyrie Irving. At the time, it was a good deal, and at the time, we were excited. Now, looking back, hindsight's 2020. Let's just leave it at that. Kevin Durant has a wish list of two teams, being Phoenix, one being Phoenix and the other being Miami. Again, Celtics aren't on this list, but there are heavy rumors that the Celtics are linked to possibly bringing in Kevin Durant. Do Celtics fans want Kevin Durant? I ask people here at the shop all the time, or people ask me and they beat me to the punch. Oh, do you want Kevin Durant on the Celtics? Do you think the Celtics should go after him? And this is my stance on it. I personally don't want Kevin Durant just because, first of all, I don't want that contract. I mean, if the contract was a fraction of what it is, then yeah, sign me up for Kevin Durant, a top 5, top 10 player in the NBA. Yeah, he's taken, he's a huge step back. But still, I think it'd be a great addition to this team. But there's rumors out there that the only way to get this done or to entice Brooklyn is to offer Jaylen Brown. And that's where I draw the line. That is where I draw the line is I want nothing to do with the Kevin Durant trade if it involves Jaylen Brown. Obviously, Jason Tatum's untouchable, and all these trade rumors between the Celtics and a bunch of these superstars, or just simply between Tatum and Brown, is, by splitting them up, is shipping Jaylen Brown out. Now, I strongly don't believe the answer is shipping Jaylen Brown out. Yes, he had his ball handling issues and his free throw line issues over the course of the playoffs, but overall, he was an excellent player. He was lights out in moments, and I think getting a taste of the NBA Finals and being so close and not giving up in Game 6, dropping 34 points, being a showout where Tatum was a no-show, I think really says a lot about that guy's character, and he's on a great contract right now. 2 years left for $25 million. I do think he's worth that. Again, you don't know in a couple years from now if he's going to re-sign or not, or how much he's going to be worth then. But I still don't think you should be trading him for, 4 years of Kevin Durant for stupid money? Here's a tweet from Adrian Wojnarowski, Woj. Phoenix and Miami are among two of the teams that Kevin Durant has on his wish list. Again, no Celtics. Sources tell ESPN, but the Nets plan to move Durant where they can get the best possible deal. With 4 years on his contract, there's no shortage of teams willing to unload assets for Durant. Now, yes, he does have team control. But ultimately, how desirable is team control? We see this all the time. Players will sign a contract, halfway through they want out. Look at Ben Simmons. Look at James Harden. Kevin Durant right now. If a guy has 1 year left on his deal, then yeah, trading him away makes sense. Or if a team is willing to trade that player away, fine. We see it all the time in baseball specifically. But at a blink of an eye, any player with any term left on their contract can just say, oh, I'm requesting a trade. I don't want to be here anymore. Whatever. It happens all the damn time. So with 4 years left on his contract, yes, you don't have to worry about free agency for 4 years, which is that's a plus. But a guy like Kevin Durant, a low-key prima donna, he's 33 years old. The last year of his contract is going to be worth $50 million. Again, the salary cap's going to go up a little bit, but is it worth it? No, I don't think so. If the contract was half of what it is, just cut every number in half, sign me up. But again, not at the chance of losing Jaylen Brown. It's just, I understand why bringing in a guy like Kevin Durant on what it could do for the Celtics. It could really take a step up for this team. But why would you risk everything? Your team is homegrown. Every single player on your team is homegrown with the exception of Derek White and Al Horford. Right. Well, at least the players, the starters, the role players, right? The main guys. Tatum, you drafted. Brown, you drafted. Smart, you drafted. Rob Williams, you drafted. You drafted Grant Williams. Peyton Pritchard, you drafted. Again, Daniel Tice, you even drafted. Well, you signed from Germany, but still, that's from Germany. That kind of counts as homegrown, right? Because he wasn't on a team before. Yeah, you traded him away and you brought him back. But again, Al Horford, who you did sign all those years ago, but you did bring him back in. And then Derek White, who you brought in. And it works. It gels. It mixes. It's not a superstar team or anything that was built on free agency like the Miami Heat of the early 2010s, or it's not like the Brooklyn Nets as of recently with Kyrie, Durant, and then eventually they brought in James Harden. It's not like LeBron James going out to LA and bringing Anthony Davis with them, or having the Lakers trade for Anthony Davis. It's not like that. And I guess if you want, you can say the Celtics built a superstar Big Three team in 2007. Fine. Okay, fine. You can say it. But like the Warriors, for instance, they're a homegrown team. I mean, yeah, they brought in Kevin Durant, but they didn't need Kevin Durant. But he certainly helps, and he did help. But Curry they drafted, Klay Thompson they drafted, Draymond Green they drafted. So it looks so good, and it feels so good that your team is homegrown and you've struggled. Well, first of all, you brought in the superstars. You brought in Al Horford. You brought in Gordon Hayward. You brought in Kyrie Irving. You brought in Kemba Walker. And there was times where it worked, but ultimately it did not work, to the point where you traded Al Horford away originally. Gordon Hayward rejected his player option. He signed with Charlotte Hornets. Kyrie Irving signed away. You had to trade Kemba Walker, ironically bringing back Al Horford. But at the end of the day, Jaylen Brown drafted, Jason Tatum drafted, Peyton Pritchard drafted, Grant Williams drafted, Rob Williams drafted, Marcus Smart drafted, Daniel Tice you brought in when he was really a nobody. That's 7 guys. That's 7 homegrown guys that are integral parts to your team who were 2 wins away from an NBA championship. What team can say that they're that homegrown? Maybe teams like in the 60s and the 70s, early on when, free agency wasn't a crazy thing and trading, all these picks and players wasn't a crazy thing at that time as it is now. But no team can say that. And you have such great chemistry. Halfway through the season, the Celtics sucked and they weren't going to make the playoffs. They turned it around, a complete 180, and they were able to turn themselves into a likable, exciting, fun team to watch, and a team that a lot of people were rooting for outside of Boston. Why would you risk and endanger that to bring in Kevin Durant, whose contract sucks? Let me just pull up the numbers real quick on Kevin Durant's contract. But why would you risk literally everything to trade away a Jaylen Brown, to trade away the trade player exception that you have from Evan Fournier? You even brought in Evan Fournier, it didn't work out, and he's gone now. Why would you risk that? Peyton Pritchard even, which, I guess he's a movable piece, but, bring him in for something that is going to help you more beneficial than what Peyton Pritchard can give you. Don't throw in Peyton Pritchard as a package just to get someone that I think is going to be a plague. Listen to this contract that Kevin Durant has. So 2022-23 will be his age 34 season. And his cap hit is $44.1 million. Next season, the season after that, 23-24 is age 35 season, $47.6 million cap hit. 2024-25 season, he'll be 36 years old. His cap hit's going to be $51.1 million. And his cap hit in 2025-2026, his last year of that contract at age 37, is going to be $54.7 million. Why would you want that contract? Why on God's green earth would you want that contract? And yeah, you could sit here and point to me and say, oh, but Murph, but you wanted John Wall on the team. Okay, well, let me bring up John Wall's contract real quick. Obviously, there's rumors he's going to get bought out and he's going to sign with the Clippers. Hasn't been official yet. But John Wall's contract in 2022-2023 is $40.8 million. That is much, 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 much more doable than paying Kevin Durant, first of all, $44.1 this coming season. But he has 4 more years left. No guarantee that he's going to stay here. If anything was to go awry, I want to trade. I want to request a trade, and he's gone. But that last year at 37, $54.7 million, no thank you. No thank you. Let's see. Agreed to buyout. Original was $47.3 million. He gave back $6.5 million. So he got bought out for $40 million, but his original number was 47. Okay, fine. That changed the discussion a little bit. But 1 year of John Wall at $47 million or $47.3 million, in order for the Celtics to bring him in, you would have to send Al Horford because of the money, to make the money work, the trade player exception, and probably like Peyton Pritchard, Aaron Nesmith, and some draft picks, or maybe 1 draft pick, because, again, the Rockets are a rebuilding team. They have young assets. I think players like Nesmith or Pritchard, maybe only takes 1, would be a good fit for Houston. A young rebuilding team, maybe they can kind of blossom there. And again, trading Al Horford may not be the most ideal thing, especially where Celtics fans fell in love with him again this year, and he fell in love with Boston. It would be a slap in the face if you trade him again after him wanting to be in Boston this whole time. But to make the money work, you would have to do it. And again, Al Horford has 1 year left on his contract. It's like $27 or so million. But it's not long term. And I think having John Wall and what he can bring to the team would be more beneficial than having Al Horford and what he's going to bring to the team. And again, yes, Al Horford was a defensive staple, veteran leadership, the old man in the room kind of a guy. But what can he give you next season after playing all of these extra games in the playoffs? 2 Game 7 series and a Game 6 series in the finals, along with playing the majority of the 2021-2022 season. He had fresh legs because he barely played with the Thunder last season, as they had him as a healthy scratch because he was too old last season. So going into next year, after playing all these games with the Celtics, what is he going to look like? And plus, him and the Rockets could have agreed to a buyout. Then he could have come back on a cheaper contract. Hypotheticals here. So I just don't think it's worth it for the Celtics to bring in Kevin Durant. Now, if you can get him in here for crazy cheap, where it's, I don't know how the money's going to work, but where you don't have to give up Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum or Rob Williams or Marcus Smart, then we can have a conversation. And then we can have a chat about it. But I'm not touching Jaylen Brown here. I'm not. I'd rather the Celtics go out and get a Bradley Beal. Again, try to get a John Wall. I think that player just suits what your team needs more than Kevin Durant. I'd rather them go out and get before he signed Bobby Portis, I'd rather see them go out and get Danilo Gallinari or Kevin Huerter, just players like that can be used on your bench and make an impact with the second unit. Whereas Kevin Durant's going to be a starter, and there's going to be too many mouths to feed. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, Marcus Smart likes to get his shots up every now and then. Too many mouths to feed. Whereas if you can take those assets or whatever and bring in someone like Derek White who can run with the second unit and be a prototypical scorer on the second unit, that just makes way more sense in my opinion. The Celtics don't need Kevin Durant. But does Kevin Durant need the Celtics? I don't know. Maybe. I used to love Kevin Durant. And in 2016, when was that? 2017? I think it was 2017. When the Celtics were trying to get Kevin Durant before he went to Golden State, I was a big fan of Kevin Durant before he went to Golden State. And then when he went to Golden State, I absolutely hated him. And I've talked about it before. I think it's very snakish that he did that. But he's still a very good player. And I'm not saying I absolutely don't want him. I'm not going to touch him with a 10-foot pole. But I'm not giving up Tatum, Brown, Smart, or Rob Williams for him. I'm not. Any other way to kind of make Kevin Durant to the Celtics work, I'll take a look at it. I'll entertain it. I'll talk about it here on Murph's Boston Sports Talk. I will. But it's just the money just doesn't make sense to me. It does not. I'd rather get a Bradley Beal for that kind of money. I really would. He's younger. He's more what the Celtics need. Kind of that shooter, that two, like the shooting guard. Someone that can drop 50. Obviously, Durant can too. But again, he's getting older. He's breaking down. He's injury prone. Yeah, Bradley Beal's coming off a season-ending wrist injury or season-ending wrist surgery. But still, he's linked to the Celtics with Jason Tatum, and they're buddies. I just think it would be a way better fit here for the Celtics. Again, players can ask for a trade at any given moment. Look at what Kevin Durant's doing. He's asking for a trade right now. Another tweet from Woj. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving had no contact with the franchise after Irving opted into his deal on Monday, and a sense of inevitability existed that Durant would eventually ask for a trade, sources tell ESPN. It happened today. Another tweet. Durant requested a trade with the team today, sources tell ESPN. That was the news on yesterday. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving teamed up in Brooklyn on purpose. Obviously, we know that. Celtics, Kyrie Irving, we saw it coming. And then they teamed up, and it hasn't worked. It straight up hasn't worked. And is it Kyrie's fault? Is it Durant's fault? Is it the Brooklyn Nets' fault? Is it Ben Simmons' fault? I have no effing idea. I think there's too much baggage. Not just the contract, but just too much baggage. I don't like it. I'm not going to rant anymore about it. I'm just not a big fan of it. But I do think I mentioned a bunch of players before. I mean, there's still a ton of deals to come out through the NBA. Obviously, this time next week, we'll have more information and more details to discuss revolving around the Celtics or other teams as well, as this time of year is arguably the most exciting time of the year for the NBA. Not a lot of top-tier NBA free agents, as we've seen in years past, but still a ton of great players, a bunch of players that teams could use for their roster come next year. But I'll be definitely interested to see where NBA free agency and the Celtics specifically are from a week from now. But I do want to jump into the Red Sox before we wrap up today's episode of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. As we talked Bruins, we talked a bunch of Celtics already, but I do want to talk about the Red Sox and their upcoming stretch of games, just kind of retroactively to their series with the Cleveland Guardians, where they swept the Cleveland Guardians. They lost 2 of 3 to the Blue Jays on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They were off yesterday, and they play the Cubs for a 3-game series this weekend. Then they got the Rays. They got the New York Yankees. They have the Rays again. They have the Yankees again. They got the Blue Jays, and they got the Guardians, and then they go to play the Milwaukee Brewers at the end of July. This upcoming month of baseball for the Boston Red Sox is going to be crucial and massive. You started out poorly, and you've immensely successfully rebounded, but you are at a point where you cannot lose, and you cannot not make the playoffs. American League, let me just look up the wildcard standings real quick, just so I can stay up to date with my information. The Celtics are currently up 2.5 games with the Toronto Blue Jays, on top of the Cleveland Guardians, who I don't think are that good, and on top of the Tampa Bay Rays, who have slipped just a little bit. They are currently 40-35, and the Red Sox and Blue Jays sit at 43-33, both 12.5 games behind the Yankees, who are on another planet, but I think they'll come crashing down. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, you got 3 against the Cubs, who are not a playoff team. So you get a little bit of a gimme there, where if you sweep them, that'd be fantastic, because like I said, you got 3 against the Rays, potential playoff team. You have 4 against the Yankees, probably a playoff team. You have 4 against the Rays following that, potential playoff team. So that's 11 games right there. You got another 3 against the Yankees, 14. You have 3 against the Blue Jays, potential playoff team, 17. You have 4 against the Cleveland Guardians. That's 21. And I'm just going to kind of cut it there, because the Brewers, and you get into national. Let's just focus on what we have in front of us here for competitive American League teams. I mean, you could obviously look at the Brewers as well. I mean, they're first place in the National League Central by a game, but I mean, they're still an excellent team. So do you want to throw them in there? I mean, let's throw them in there. Then you got, 3 against the Brewers. So that's, 24. 3 against the Astros going into August. That's 27. And then I'm going to cut it at the Royals, because now we're getting past the trade deadline, and I kind of want to stay before the trade deadline here. That's 27 games between now, and I'm not even counting the Blue Jay series you just played. I'm not even counting the Cleveland Guardians series that you just played. But you have 27 games from today. I guess if you don't want to count the Cubs series but they're still important games. From July 4th to August, where's that last game of that Astros series? August 3rd, you have 27 games against playoff teams. A bunch of them, Rays, Yankees twice, Blue Jays, all American League East divisional opponents who you've struggled against this entire season. Plus, you have a series against the Guardians, who've been playing well this year. You have a series against the Astros, who always play you tough and, of course, are leading the American League West. The Brewers, who are leading the National League Central, who are going to be a playoff team. You have tough opponents ahead of you. Again, not including the series you just had against Toronto, which you could easily include into this. You had a good series against the Cleveland Guardians. Again, I'm not counting it here in that 27-game stretch, but let's just throw those teams in there. That's 3. That's 3 against. That's 6. So 27 plus 6. quick math, 33 games. So from June 24th, last Friday, to August 3rd, you're playing 33 games against either definite playoff teams or potential playoff teams. Again, not including 3 against the Cubs this weekend. Plus, you have the trade deadline coming up towards the tail end of that. This is an important stretch for the Boston Red Sox, who are currently, let me get back to the American League, who are currently 8-2 in their last 10 games, who lost 2 of 3 to the Toronto Blue Jays this past week. You are 20-16 at home, 23-17 on the road. You're 43-33 currently. Again, you currently lead the American League wild card with the Toronto Blue Jays at 2.5 games, excuse me. This stretch, I cannot emphasize, is so important. You're either going to separate yourself in the wild card, maybe catch some ground on the Yankees if they can kind of cool off a bit, who are 6-4 in their last 10, still pretty good. Or you're going to, since you're playing a lot of American League East teams who you have struggled against this year, are going to collapse. And you're going to look more like that team from April and that team from the beginning of May. That's what's going to happen. You're either going to catch ground on the Yankees / separate yourself in the wildcard standings, or you're going to abysmally fall off the face of the earth. Because, again, most of the teams that you are playing are the Yankees, the Blue Jays again, and the Rays several times. And you're not good against the American League East this year. Plus, you're going against teams like the Guardians, who are a potential playoff team. And you're going against the Brewers, who lead the National League Central. And you're going against the Houston Astros, who lead the American League West. It's going to be a bumpy month of July. And we're going to need the absolute best of baseball from the Boston Red Sox. But the question is, will we get that type of play from them? What team will we see? Will we see the Red Sox from April and early May, where they were 19-29 or whatever the hell the record that was? Or are we going to, what was it? No, it was like 9-21. That was like, I think their worst. I think their worst was 9-21. Or are we going to see the team that has been absolutely been killing it since like the middle of May, or like wherever it was, the end of May, whenever they started to turn around and go on their insane stretch where they're currently 43-33. Let's do quick math here. That is 34-12 since 9-21. They're 34-12 since they were 9-21. What team are we going to get over the next month or so? Because whatever team we get is going to defy the Red Sox 2022 campaign. Because, again, as you go into August, you get to play the Royals, the Braves, the Orioles, the Orioles, the Yankees again, the Pirates, who are playing tough, the Blue Jays, the Rays again, the Twins, the Rangers. I mean, that's all in August. So, like, it's back and forth between the competition, and you can't adjust whoever you're playing on your schedule, and it's not your fault whoever you play on your schedule. But when your schedule looks like what it does in July, you need to make the most of it, because, again, you're playing 7 against the Yankees. You're playing 7 against the Tampa Bay Rays. You're playing another 3 against the Blue Jays, who just smacked you. You play 4 against the Guardians, 3 against the Brewers, 3 against the Astros, and I don't know if I missed anybody else. I don't think I did. Crucial time for the Boston Red Sox. But what do you guys think? Who are we going to see in the next month from the Red Sox between now and the next 33 games, including the trade deadline at the end of all that on August 2nd? What team will we see from the Boston Red Sox? Will we see the 9-21 team from the beginning of the season? Or are we going to see the 34-12 team that we've been seeing for the past month and a half plus? I can't wait to see what you guys have to say about that or anything we've talked about in today's episode. But that is going to wrap up today's episode, as I do greatly appreciate you guys downloading, listening, and enjoying on all audio-only platforms. You can find Murph's Boston Sports Talk on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. Anywhere where you can listen to your podcasts, you can find Murph's Boston Sports Talk. And if you're listening to this episode on YouTube, thank you so much for clicking on the video. Please make sure you smash the thumbs up button. Leave any questions, comments, concerns, anything down below in the comments section, as I can't wait to read and reply to those. And please also consider smashing that giant subscribe button, as I would greatly appreciate the love and support. But that's going to do it for this one. If you guys want to reach out to me at social media, it is at Murph's Cardtown on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as well. But that's going to do it for this episode. I will catch you in the next one. But between now and then, you guys know that I love you. I will always, always see you.